Hey guys, what's going on? This is David Chen. You're on another edition of Panoramics Podcast, New York Weekly's #1 podcast for 2020. And today we have a special dear friend of mine, someone who is of educational legendary status, a mover and shaker, Chancellor Kelly Damphousse from Arkansas State. How you doing, sir?
Hey, David. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, first off, as everyone knows, Panoramics, this right here that I've had for 80 episodes is actually from Chancellor Damphousse himself. Handwritten, meant the world to me. Thank you so much, Kelly. And I've had it up there for every episode. So everyone asks, and I always tell them it's about you and meant so much to me and kind of what we did. So let's talk a little bit about how we met, because atypical, a guy from El Paso, meeting the Chancellor from Arkansas State. But, shout out to Stephanie who put us together. I was speaking at one of your guys' events with NYIT. It was an esports event. I was honored. I was going to show up. And then COVID happened. So we had to do it online. And then through there, the Chancellor was one of the very few people who really understands the value of esports and growth. And you were there, and we developed a friendship from that ever since. So it was an amazing thing. But I kind of want to hear your side of the story of how we kind of met.
Well, it's interesting. It kind of goes back to my first kind of entree into esports, because I was at an NCAA conference a few years back, and I went to the room to hear about what other people thought about esports. And I thought esports was really a big deal, a great opportunity for Arkansas State to get into, because I knew that some schools were kind of tippy-toeing in. And so I went to this room, this gigantic ballroom, and I actually literally took a picture, I'll share it with you someday, of this room saying, and I said to my wife, well, I guess I'm the only person who cares about esports, because I was there about 5 minutes early. And about 5 minutes later, the place just packed up, and there's people standing everywhere. I took another picture of that later on, but clearly a lot of people were interested in it. And so I was literally live texting from the presentation from the people who were talking about what it took to start up an esports program. And then I, reached out to Stephanie when I got back and said, I hear you're a gamer. Do you know anything about esports? And she said, I literally had to stop playing Call of Duty to answer your text here. And then she said, I'm all in on trying to start a program up here. And it's, there's no real game map for how you start an esports program. There's probably like 50 different ways of doing it. But I started with Stephanie because she knew something about it. She was passionate about it. And then she got it going. And then she worked out this idea for having NYIT, which is our medical school here on campus, our medical school partner, to have a conference about esports. And they're really big into esports and health. And so there's a whole literature now about how the dangers of people who are sitting for long periods of time over a keyboard playing the games, and how that can affect your eyes and your posture and your back and neck strain and so on. And they do that part, but we put together this whole conference, and then you were supposed to be here, and then you had to COVID in from a Zoom conference. And then at the Zoom session, I was blown away by you and another presenter there about your background. I got to know more about this guy, because there's so much to know. You've probably forgotten more than I'll ever know about esports. And so to me, it was really important to reach out to you and to bend your ear and to help me learn more about how I can improve the esports experience on our campus, and how I can expand esports broadly beyond Arkansas State. Well, I always love being first, but it's a lot more fun when other people are doing it with you, So I've grown to really depend on you and your insight about where the future of esports, where we are now, but where we can be, because I think there's huge potential at the collegiate level for esports.
Chancellor, I really appreciate that. That was, such nice words to say, and it means the world to me. And I appreciate that. And what's amazing about this is you see the foresight of esports, and you see it beyond just gaming. You see it helping students in the education system. Tell me where you see esports fitting into your portfolio as an educator, and where it can help the students in the future, because it's not just games, it's so much more.
Well, there's two things I think about with esports in Arkansas State. The first thing is that we think that it's a huge recruiting platform for us, but that we can bring students who are currently high school students who are thinking about going to college somewhere, that we can attract them to come here because of the work that we've put into creating the gaming lounge and our esports center, the coaching staff that we have, and success we've had in competition. That'll help us recruit people here. The second thing is we actually have a great computer science program that is merging with our art and design program, and they're actually getting involved in creating games and getting involved in electronic gaming as well. And so there's a great kind of academic opportunity there as well. And then finally, this is the opportunity, I think, for us to get to let the world know about what's happening in Arkansas State, just like the NCAA does for us, NCAA athletics does for us, which is provide an opportunity for people to know something about Arkansas State by watching a football game or a soccer match or whatever. When our students compete collegiately, and as the stages get larger and larger, when they're wearing the Red Wolves jersey, which, by the way, is the best looking jersey on the market, I think, and thanks for your help in helping design a couple versions of it. When people see that, then people want to know more about Arkansas State. And that's how athletics does. Athletics is some people call it the window. I like to think of it as the doorway into the university. And I think there's a huge potential as the market grows, as the opportunity for intercollegiate esports market grows, more and more people watching it, not just in Arkansas, not just in the United States, but around the world, that we'll be able to attract students to come here as well to learn more about Arkansas State. And by the way, we have a large number of international students here. About roughly 10% of our students are international here at Arkansas State. About the largest percentage is from China, followed by India. And so we would love to get more in that market. And I think esports might be an entree for that as well.
What's amazing is you see this vision and you understand it, and you understand it's a conduit to bring people in, and you see the vision. You know, this almost takes over from the traditional ways of saying, I want to go to school through a certain Ivy League school, but it might not necessarily offer the same programs that Arkansas State is offering, or the same vision as it has, right? And the world is changing. I mean, a coder can come in now and make $400,000 a year and not necessarily have to finish school, right? Kids are making money off of Roblox, but when they go to a place like yours or any other place that has the education of esports, they're surrounding themselves not just with gaming and understanding the programming side of it, but the marketing and the business. And that's where I really say kudos to you guys, because you know, we're with 220 universities in 30 countries, and you're one of the top ones who's leading the pack, ironically, right? I didn't even mean to say that, the pack, and going from there. And I'll tell you one thing I really loved about our, you know, our working partnership was we did that Mark Cuban 3 commas deal. And it was interesting because, you know, Arkansas State was our big university that we were doing this with, and we had the ability to do so. But if Mark Cuban and 3 commas had the interest in Arkansas State, you can imagine where esports is, right? He's very skeptical. He owns a team, but he understands the value of the clothing and the side of that. And you have the foresight of going that. But I want to take it back a little bit. Sure. You know, you're a chancellor of Arkansas State, right? University. Tell us a little bit about the process and kind of how you got there. Did you always want to be a chancellor? What did you want to do and got to where you got? Because it's an amazing story.
I love telling the story because it's not a story about me. It's a story about other people. And, you know, I grew up in a little fishing village in northern Canada, and I had no vision of going to college. I didn't really know anyone who went to college. Not only am I a first-generation student, I really didn't know anyone who went to college. Now, when I say that, I realize how stupid I was, because my teachers obviously went to college, but it wasn't something they talked about. And so I had no concept of that until I moved down to southern Alberta in February of my senior year. End up going to a community college down there because no one in my original hometown went to college. No one did. But when I moved down south, many of them were going to college, and I thought, oh, I didn't even know how that happened. I'd seen it in movies, that kind of thing. And I ended up going to a community college and wanted to be, my goal was to be a goalie in the NHL. That never worked, or to be a police officer. So I got a law enforcement diploma from the community college, but I was only 19 when I graduated. So I ended up going to prison for 3 years. Just to clarify that, I worked in prison. I was a prison.
I was like, what a great story.
Yeah, what a great story. The story gets better, right? So I was a prison guard for 3 years. And then one of my instructors from that community college said, hey, there's a school down in Texas called Sam Houston State, and they really want to help Canadian college kids get a 4-year degree. And he talked me going down there. I never would have even dreamed about going down if he hadn't invested in me. He's one of the 5 people that changed my life. I love to tell the story about him and the other 4 people that changed my life. But with his guidance, I went down to the States, went to school, got a degree, but I met a girl who didn't want to marry a cop or a Canadian, so she talked me into staying. So I ended up staying. I worked retail security for a while, and then when we got married, she talked me to go to grad school, and just because for a lot of reasons. But I ended up going to grad school, got my PhD in sociology, and then my goal then was just to kind of keep a job. We had 2 kids when I was in grad school, so I was just working all the time, just trying to keep them fed. And one thing led to another. I moved to the University of Oklahoma, and after a few years, I became an associate dean, and I became the dean of a large college there. And then in 2017, I got invited to apply for this job. I never, not in a million years thought I'd be doing this job. And even before I got that phone call, I never even thought about doing this. But I got a phone call from someone who said, we're looking for a chancellor, which is like a president. So a lot of schools have chancellors and presidents. So in Arkansas, they're called chancellors. And we'd love for you to apply. And I like, yeah, I don't even know why you're asking me. He said, well, I was going online and I watched some of your videos that have been produced and so on. I think you might be a good fit for us. And, like literally like 3 weeks later, they hired me. I mean, that's how quickly it went. And then, David, you probably had this experience, like right after, I'm going, what was I doing? I've been at Oklahoma for 20 years. I don't know how to be a chancellor. Like I had this huge inferiority complex and imposter syndrome, and like everyone's going to figure me out. I'm going to get fired a month in. And so I've just been for the past 4.5 years, just scrambling, trying to make my boss look like he made the right decision. So there you go. That's the story in about 3 minutes, right?
I love the story for many reasons. This is what Pananomics Podcast is about, right? It was unexpected. It was a vision that you did not necessarily see. Opportunity lands. And I think all of us that's out there trying to make it, whether it's a new company, whether it's an existing company, we all deal with imposter syndrome because we care and we want to do what's best and we want to help people. And we don't want to make people look bad. And I think that's a valuable commodity, but it's also a dangerous one too, because you beat yourself way more harder than anyone ever beat you up because you don't want to make people look bad and you do care. And I attribute that to a lot of the hard work and success of people that really care about it. In fact, if you look at, in general, of all the guests we've had, nobody, whether it was Domi Shi who did Bao for Disney Pixar and won the Academy Award, that was her first film and she got it. Or Aaron Jones, never thinking that he was going to, go to the NFL and do as great as he did, and he has. It's a great story of what you've done and put that together. And I find that so amazing. And kudos to the wife for recognizing some of the things and you listening, because it made a big difference, right, in what you've done. And I think that's important. For people who now are sitting there and talking about higher education, when you talk about higher education, it goes beyond just the classroom, right? What are some of the things that you see that students should be doing to help grow themselves and their networks during their time at a university?
That's a fascinating question. I think about this a lot. And there's 2 things that I think are important to talk about. The first is that there's a growing sentiment. Now, this isn't new. It's been around for a long time. But there's a growing sentiment that college isn't worth it. And part of the problem that's exacerbating that is that the cost of going to college is more and more expensive. When I'm considerably older than you, but when I was younger, I could get a job in the summer and make enough money to pay for my tuition for the fall and spring and my books and room and board. You just can't do that anymore. The cost of education has shifted from states who used to fund higher education in the public system to students and parents who are now funding the education. So when the cost of going to college is high, people start to weigh, is the value of it is high? And it's never been more strained than it is now. So there's a lot of people out there who are saying 2 things. One, first off, it's not worth it to me. And then there are other people who are saying, not everyone needs a college degree. We need plumbers and carpenters and so on. Interestingly, the people who are saying that typically are sending their kids to college. What they're saying is, you don't need a college degree. We need you to do this work. I'm going to send my kids to college because I think it's important. And so there's a lot of messages out there that are confusing young people. And one of my jobs now is to change that mythology about college isn't worth it, that there's no value there, that it's too expensive, that I can't afford to go, and I'm not smart enough to go, because there's none of that is true. The value is high. If you're motivated to go, if you have an interest in going to college, if you've done well in school, there's scholarships and grant programs available. The federal government provides a lot of money for students to go. We have a lot of private money available. So trying to change that myth to get college students to go, so high school students start thinking about going to college. Here's what's interesting. In the state of Arkansas, last year, only 43% of the high school graduates went to college. And to me, that's stunning. And so we need to change that trend. The second thing is what you do when you go to college. It used to be you went to college and you might have gotten involved in one or two groups, maybe in the Greek life or maybe athletics or maybe your residence halls. And I think the idea in college back then was just to kind of stall around for about 4 years and then graduate and go find a job somewhere. And it's funny you mentioned this or you asked this, but just last night I was meeting with a bunch of first-generation college students, and I told them to take advantage of this time here to interact with people who are older than them, to learn from them, because just like there are people in my life who changed my life, the 5 people who changed my life, which by the way includes my wife, there are people who are just waiting. Their whole career is about helping young people change the trajectory of their lives, and they want to be there to help them. And so reach out to professors, go have lunch with one of your faculty members, go meet with someone who works in student affairs, go do an internship sometime in the summer. Instead of getting a job at a fast food restaurant, go do an internship, or even if you're not getting paid, getting that kind of hands-on experience can be invaluable. We're a research university. Our faculty members are engaged in research. Go volunteer to be part of a research project. Use the time here to prepare yourself for that 4-year, for what you do when you leave here in 4 years. And so I think students need to be convinced to go to college, that there is a purpose and a plan for going. And second, to be purposeful while you're there so you can prepare yourself for the world in front of you. You can't wait till you graduate to start thinking about what you're going to do after you graduate. It's too late to do that.
I love that, and I was one of those kids, right? And this goes to tell everyone else, I'm now sitting on the board of my old private school, which I never thought I would with some of my old teachers, right? And now in my 40s, which is weird to say, but I was never one of the good kids. I mean, I had a 1020 SAT score. I only got a 3 out of 10 universities. And, my 5th year going into it, I had to leave and drop out because both my parents had a heart attack. But what I tell people all the time is school didn't fail me. I failed school because I didn't grow up. I wasn't mature to leave home and go to another state to learn that mom and dad are no longer going to wash your clothes and you're going to have to fend for yourself and eat and grow up and deal with problems that you never, ever thought would ever exist as an adult. It's a scary thing. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And, for a lot of people don't realize is I was super shy until I was 25. I didn't even want to go out. Right. And now, I have no problem talking to anybody. And so that growth and that development that you get from a university perspective is huge. And the other thing I love that you said was interning. A lot of the young people, because it's instant gratification, and we deal with this all the time, is we'll have kids who will intern from us from all over different universities, and they'll quit in the middle of their internship because they're not hitting goals or doing what they have to do, or they want to get paid first, but they want to enter esports, and they've never had any experience in esports. It's all hypothetical theory. And so they quit before they even start, which then puts a bad taste in everyone's mouth, or they don't even want to do it because all they want is they want to make money first, and that's all that matters, right? And what you hit it. Networking is literally, to me, the most important thing, because that will get you into the universities and do everything that you want to do. I think that's really, really important. And so I love that you said that, and it really puts it up in a great perspective.
It's interesting. I actually said this to students last night. If you hear someone say networking, you typically think, oh, I don't want to be schmoozing and being fake and stuff like that. But it's not about being fake. Now, you can do it to be fake, but it is really about just taking advantage of the people who are around you, because, President Obama got in trouble with this a couple of years ago when he said, you didn't build it. But what he meant was nobody gets there by themselves. Everyone gets there because there's someone who helped them, who worked hard for them, who opened a door for them. And that's what a network can do for you. And so if you get an opportunity to stretch yourself a little bit by going into a relationship that might seem kind of awkward at first, especially if you're a shy person like me. I'm super introverted, right? You might not believe this, but I am. I'd much rather stay at home at night and watch reruns of Dateline. So that's a good night for me, right? College football and watching Dateline. But my experience has been that those few times when I took a chance and went and met with someone and then started following their advice, those are the moments that my life was going like this, was going here, and all of a sudden went like this or went this way, because those people were able to open doors. And if I can share a quick story with you, one of my mentors is one of the 5 people that changed my life. One day we're sitting in a car, and it was raining, so we're waiting for the rain to stop before it runs. And I said to him, after a long conversation, I said, "How can I ever repay you for what you've done for me?" And I said that he said, Ellie, you don't have anything I want, so you can't repay me. But someday you'll be sitting behind the steering wheel of the car, and someone else will be sitting there. And when you help that person out, that's how you'll repay me. And so I've never forgotten that. Every time I got in a moment where someone is reaching out to me, I've never said no to them, because I'm always trying to pay Dr. Crouch back for what he did for me. And I think that's our campus is filled with people. Our lives are filled with people who feel compelled to help someone because they know that they were helped to get there as well. And that's why mentoring and interning and networking are all important things. All of them sound kind of, especially the networking thing, sounds kind of like cheesy to do. Super important and life-altering opportunities.
What I love about what you just said is it's the ability, and this is what I have found in all these episodes that I've done about commonalities. You give without expectation, and you pay it forward. And there was a movie back in the day, Haley Joel Osment carrying on the movie, but I think it was Pay It Forward.
It's called Pay It Forward, yeah.
It's called Pay It Forward, right? Okay, great. And the whole concept for people who haven't seen it yet is you do something nice, and if one person else to someone else nice in the world and they keep doing it, the whole world becomes a better place. And many times where a lot of people, I think, especially young, make a mistake is, well, what's in it for me? Nothing has to be in it for you. Good intentions should be what it is. But the most successful people that I know and that I've met all do the same thing. They give and they pay it forward. And we didn't have this conversation ahead of time, which is why I know this is a true force of what it does. You just want to help, and then everyone else has to kind of do it on their own. And so it's so amazing that you said that, and blessings to one of your mentors, who did that as well, because now you're paying it forward to a whole youth group of everyone around there, and I think that makes a big difference. For a student out there who is struggling, who might not be doing the 4.0 or the 3.0, but a 2.0 who's barely holding on, someone like me who's barely holding on, what would you tell them, without them giving up and dropping out, that they could do better, and how they could receive help so they can go and finish off strong?
That's a great question, because I'm going to reflect a little bit on my own life. One of the blessings of my life is when I went back to college after I got out of prison, was when I transferred in, they transferred all my classes as pass-fail. So I had a 2.54 GPA coming out of community college. I was not a good student. Mostly, I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to get out, and I was doing the bare minimum. All I knew was C's get degrees, right? And
right.
So that was my goal, was just not to fail. I actually failed the class because I just didn't go. And it was at noon, and they opened a new McDonald's in this town. So I said, oh, I love Big Macs, and so I'd go to get a Big Mac every day. I shouldn't say that, product placement there, but it became a problem for me. I just wasn't a good student. When I went back, I was a little bit older, and I decided that I couldn't do this by myself, that I needed help. And so when I run into young people who are struggling, and I see that all the time, I always tell them that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay if you're struggling. I was not a good student, and sometimes it's revealing for them to see that. I actually show my transcript to I teach a freshman class every semester, and I start off by showing them my transcript from my community college and say, this is what I was like, and but I didn't figure it out until I was too old. Don't wait till you're too old to go get help. If you're taking a math class and you're struggling, one of the first things students do is stop going to class, because that's a symptom of depression, is people don't want to get out of bed. And so the way to fix it is be proactive. Go to a tutoring session. Go talk to your professor. They have office hours. We call office hours the loneliest hour of the week, because no one ever comes visit you. But your door's open. You're waiting for students to come in. Waiting until the night before the exam and then emailing your professor is a bad plan. Going in right after is a great plan. Creating study groups with other people in your classroom. And when you teach someone, let's say you take a class and you learn a concept, and then you're with a study group and they don't get it. When you teach it to them, it solidifies that in your brain. To teach something, you have to understand it. And to be in a small group and they teach you something and you teach them something, that's how you learn those things. That's how, in your world, you know, almost no one sits in a cubicle by themselves anymore. People are working in groups together all the time. So learning from other people, learning with other people, making it a social experience can be a huge way to improve this. And then, frankly, just reaching out for help and not waiting and just silently slinking off and disappearing. Take control. You're not powerless in this situation. Just like we're not powerless in COVID, right? There's things we can do to protect ourselves in COVID. There's things you can do proactively to protect yourself in the life of a college student, for sure.
I love that. And I think what people need to understand this is turning in a homework assignment in the real world is turning in your job. Yeah. And you're going to get fired if you don't turn in your job and assignment, and you can't sit there and tell them the day that this big presentation is due that I don't know that. Yeah. That to me is simple laziness, and that is not being proactive and asking. I love that you talked about office hours, because I was one of the students that waited last minute to show up to try to butter up the professor a little bit, tell him my situation and go into class. But in the real world, that prep, that's the networking side of prep, right? If you show that you care, and awesome professors like the ones that you have at Arkansas State, they will be proactive because they care. They care about it. Me instructing now at SMU and teaching, I really do care. Like, I want all my guys to be successful. I want them to network with me. I want them to feel the way they feel. And I didn't understand that until later on. But that piece is so pivotal. And I'm glad that you gave that piece of advice, because you heard it first from a chancellor, that is a great way to get things done and makes it extremely valuable. You mentioned a little bit that you play video games, right? So what games do you play, and which ones do you like?
Well, so I probably shouldn't tell this, but I love the shooting games. That's the ones I kind of grew up with. And so let me step back. I used to play a game called Pong. Now, this is way old school. You put it on your TV, and you really had dials. And you could either play tennis, and you had the ball, or you play hockey and had a smaller goal on each side. And that's how I started off. And so when my kids were young, of course, we bought 007 and Call of Duty. But here's why I knew esports would be big. When I stopped playing, I couldn't play anymore because my nephews, they'd kill me. Like, I'd turn a corner, I'd be dead. And so it just. But here's how I knew it would be successful. My daughters would sit there for hours and watch my nephews play. And they play Wii games or whatever. They played every once in a while. But they love to watch people who are good. And I said, there's a market there for people to watch video games. They're becoming so realistic now that I think this may happen. And this was before esports became a thing. But then when I started to see esports coming out, I said, these people have got it. Because there are people who like to watch that, and to be able to engage and to hear people talking about what they're doing and to learn about the strategies. And so that's it. So I mostly 007 and Call of Duty were my games, but and Pong. So
I love it. Chancellor Kelly, thank you so much for your time. Tell us a little bit about your social media, so where people can follow you online, because you're active there as well.
I'm pretty active. I'm on Facebook for old people, and that's KDAMP, and then I'm on Twitter for younger people, and that's KDAMP, and then Instagram for college students age students, that's KDAMP 63. I used to be KDAMP, but somehow I messed up and I had to put 63 in there. That's my birthday. So KDAMP 63 on Instagram, and then I've got a couple other things too. But that's where I have Instagram, but I can't. Snapchat, but I can't keep up with that. Three's all I can do.
Three is a lot. We're gonna have to get you in a tournament one time. We'll play together. And we'll do something and play. Maybe we could do a Pong one.
I could be like a medic or something like that.
I love it. Everyone has a great role, and that's an amazing role. Chancellor Damphousse, thank you so much for your time and your authenticity and helping everyone else. I know you're busy trying to run a university, so we're going to let you get going. For David Chen and Chancellor Damphousse from Arkansas State, thank you guys so much for joining another edition of Panoramics Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.